I'm not sure where Logan Sargeant's level of confidence is at the moment, but I imagine it can't be very high. On Friday morning during the first practice session of the Formula One Australian Grand Prix weekend, Sargeant's Williams teammate, Alex Albon, suffered a massive impact during a crash that left his FW46 chassis unrepairable. Williams, however, were not in a position to offer Albon a replacement chassis as they were unable to bring one to Melbourne given delays in car development from this past winter. Because of this, the team found themselves in the unenviable position of having only one car available for the remainder of the Grand Prix weekend. In a polarizing move, team principal James Vowles announced the decision to give Sargeant's chassis to Albon for Saturday and Sunday, sidelining Sargeant through no fault of his own. From a strictly business standpoint, the decision might make sense in the short term, but does it make sense in the long run? Let's address some of the responses from people who might be defending Williams' decision here. What if Max Verstappen had done this? Wouldn't it make sense to give him Sergio Perez's car? Such a scenario is not even worth considering, because Red Bull would have actually had a spare chassis. You know, like any competent Formula One team would have, to be prepared for a situation such as this. Surely Albon gives the team a better chance at points. Let me be clear, Albon is absolutely the number one driver at Williams. Nobody is disputing that. But these two are not in a Mercedes, a McLaren, or even an Aston Martin. Williams is a team that has finished P10, dead last in the Constructors' Championship 4 times in the last 6 years. Results from the first 2 races this season appear to indicate that they are solidly in the back half of the field again in 2024. If Albon were to score points on Sunday, we would almost certainly not be talking about a massive haul here. Is the small possibility of a team's first driver maybe salvaging a point or two worth the destruction in their second driver's confidence? Is it worth the PR nightmare that this situation has become? Given the limitations of the Williams chassis, not to mention the fact that Albon's own career best in Australia is only P10, the final point scoring position, I'm not convinced it is. Is anyone actually watching the race for Sargeant to begin with? Readers of lastcar.info will no doubt be able to back up this claim. Every driver in the field has passionate, devoted fans. Sargeant, despite driving one of the worst cars on the grid and only scoring 1 point all of last year, is no exception. In fact, one X/Twitter user responded to the team's statement telling them, quote, "I hope you know that you've shattered the heart of a Logan fan that flew in from the States for her first ever Grand Prix. While I can't speak for this fan, I also can't imagine she's very happy. After all, she booked a transcontinental flight to attend her first F1 race, only to be told less than 2 days before the event that her favorite driver had been pushed aside simply because of a mistake by his teammate." Doesn't Sargeant DNF every week? Sargeant has indeed developed a reputation as an accident-prone driver, but for all the criticism he dealt with his rookie year for his practice crashes, most of Sargeant's race retirements were for reasons other than collision damage. An oil leak sidelined him after 6 laps in Canada. His Dutch Grand Prix crash was the direct result of a hydraulics failure. Heat stroke left him unable to safely finish the race in a dangerously hot Qatar Grand Prix. And in Mexico, the team brought him into the pits on the final lap due to a fuel pump issue. I would also argue that such criticism is hardly relevant on this particular weekend. After all, this weekend, Albon was the one who crashed. Williams as a team were embarrassingly unprepared, unable to provide a spare chassis for Albon 3 races into the new season. Now to Vowles' credit, he acknowledged and admitted that this is, quote, unacceptable in modern day Formula One. But the reality is that his team was not in a position to support Albon following his accident. That's a bad enough look. And it's made worse by the fact that the driver who was not involved in a crash is the one who has ended up sidelined by his teammate's mistake. It also comes at a curious time in F1 history, less than 2 months removed from the sport's decision to deny Andretti Global an entry as the 11th team. One of the reasons for that decision was supposed concerns over Andretti's ability to field a competitive entry. Yet one of F1's existing teams is so unprepared to compete that they could not bring a spare chassis to the 3rd race of the year? Give me a break. Any words from people within the Williams team in support of Sargeant feel incredibly hollow when a decision like this is made. How can we take the team's claims that they support their driver seriously when they withdraw him from the weekend in favor of the driver who actually wrecked their car? If Williams think as little of Sargeant's ability behind the wheel of an F1 car as they appear to today, so be it. But maybe they should have simply replaced him with Liam Lawson or Felipe Drugovich this offseason, instead of pretending to back him before destroying whatever confidence he might have had left.